The wind howled across the plains that night, sweeping dust in long, ghostly ribbons around the foothills. The horizon was a dull bruise, fading into black as the last of the sun disappeared behind the buttes. A single lamp burned in the distance, the only light for miles, flickering against the sagging outline of a small ranch house. The woman followed that glow like a moth chasing its last hope. Her dress was torn at the hem, the color of the prairie itself after weeks of travel. Her boots were cracked, one missing a lace. The horse beneath her stumbled with exhaustion, foam streaking its flanks. Every breath the animal drew was a shudder. When she saw the corral fence take shape in the moonlight, she whispered encouragement through cracked lips. "Just a little more, girl. Just a little more." The mare obeyed, but its stride faltered again before she slid down, one arm trembling against the saddle to steady herself. The house looked abandoned at first. No sound came from it, no dog barking, no movement behind the shutters. The door hung slightly ajar. She hesitated, one hand gripping the revolver she'd taken from a man 2 towns back, a man who deserved worse than being robbed. The metal was cold, unfamiliar in her palm. She raised her chin and stepped toward the porch. A shadow moved inside. The lamp shifted, throwing a tall, lean figure across the threshold. The door creaked wider. The man stood framed by the dim light, hat brim low over his eyes, rifle resting loosely in his hand. "Don't move," he said. She froze, her chest heaving. "I don't mean trouble. People always say that when they bring it," he answered, voice flat, worn. "You're a long way from any place you should be." "I know," she whispered. "Please. My horse won't last the night." "Neither will I." The man stepped forward enough for her to see his face, stubbled, sunburnt, lined from wind and solitude. He looked at her the way a man looks at a snake he isn't sure is dead. "Name, Clara," she said after a pause. "Just Clara, he repeated, glancing past her at the limp horse. "I don't take in strangers." "Then think of me as someone who'll be gone by dawn," she said. "I only need warmth, a roof, one night." He watched her for another long moment before lowering the rifle slightly. "Water's in the trough, hay in the shed, you can sleep there." She flinched at the words, not from insult but from despair. The shed would be colder than the open air. "Please," she said, "I haven't eaten since morning. I can pay." She reached into her pocket, pulling out a few coins, their dull clink pitifully small in the silence. His eyes softened, but his tone didn't. "Keep your money. You can come inside long enough to eat, then you sleep in the shed. I've got no reason to trust anyone this side of the mountains." She nodded, swallowing whatever pride she had left. "Thank you." Inside, the house smelled of coffee grounds, smoke, and old leather. It was sparse: a table, a stove, 2 chairs, a bedroll against the far wall. A rifle leaned near the door, and beside it, a pair of worn boots coated in dust the color of rust. She sank onto the nearest chair, her limbs trembling with relief and exhaustion. The man poured coffee from a tin pot and slid the mug toward her. "It's bitter," he said. "But it's hot." She drank greedily, wincing as the heat hit her throat. "You live alone." "Most days," he said. He tore a piece of bread from a loaf, added a strip of dried meat, and set it down. "You're not a thief, are you?" "If I were, I'd be a bad one. I don't even own both my boots anymore." That almost made him smile. "Almost. Where you coming from?" "South," she said quickly. "A town called Dry Fork." He stiffened a little. "That's 2 days hard ride. You run from something." "Someone," she said, staring into the cup. "He won't come after me." "Not anymore." The man's eyes lingered on her face, as if weighing the truth of that. "What did he do?" She shook her head. "Nothing you'd care to hear." He didn't press. Instead, he moved to the stove and fed another piece of wood to the flame. "You can stay the night," he said finally. "Tomorrow, you move on." Her voice trembled. "Please, just a few days. I can work, I can cook, mend, whatever you need. You've got fences falling apart out there, and your corral gates hanging by a nail. Let me earn my keep." He turned, surprise flickering in his expression. "You notice all that in the dark?" "I notice everything when I'm desperate," she said. "And I am." He rubbed the back of his neck. "It's not about the work. It's about what happens when someone sees you here and starts asking why." "I've got no one left to ask," she murmured. The silence stretched between them, filled with the crackle of the fire and the moan of wind through the boards. Finally, he sighed. 1 week. You work for food and shelter. Nothing more." She nodded quickly. "That's more kindness than I deserve." "Don't mistake it for kindness," he said. "It's trade. She slept that night on a bed of hay in the shed, the scent of dust and horses clinging to her hair. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't afraid of waking up to the wrong man's hands or the wrong side of a knife. She dreamed of water, clear, endless, and woke before dawn with tears on her face. When she stepped outside, the sky was a pale blue bruise just before sunrise. The man was already at the corral, hammering a loose board back into place. His movements were efficient, methodical. She watched him for a moment before approaching. "I can help," she said. "If you've got a spare hammer." He handed it to her without a word. By noon, they'd repaired half the fence line. Her palms were blistered, her back ached, but she didn't complain. The cowboy, his name, she'd learned, was Eli, worked in silence. Occasionally he glanced at her, as if trying to read what kind of trouble she carried. Once, when she stumbled, he caught her arm, steadying her. His hand lingered a moment longer than it should have, then he stepped back as though burned. "You're not used to ranch work," he said. "I'm used to harder," she replied. That night, they ate together again. She made stew from beans, salt pork, and a few shriveled carrots she'd found in his pantry. Eli tasted it, nodded once. "You can stay through the week," he said quietly. "We'll see after that." Each day blurred into the next. She mended torn saddle straps, washed the dust from his shirts, hauled water from the creek. Eli spoke little, but sometimes, when the sun sank and the horizon turned gold, he'd tell her small things, how he came west after the war, how the ranch had once belonged to his brother, how the land was both his curse and his salvation. She listened, drawn to the sadness in his voice. She knew that kind of loneliness, the kind that gnaws slow and steady, leaving hollow places where laughter used to live. One evening, a storm rolled in from the north. The wind tore across the plain, rattling shutters and lifting dust into the air like ghosts. Clara rushed to tie down the water barrels, but a sudden flash split the sky and the mare spooked, breaking free of the post. Eli ran out into the rain, shouting over the thunder. Together they caught the terrified animal, her hands gripping the reins as the storm drenched them both. When they finally got the horse back into the stable, they were soaked to the bone, breathless and laughing despite themselves. Inside, Eli built up the fire. Clara stood near it, shivering, hair plastered to her face. He handed her a blanket and turned away, giving her privacy. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "You saved me from more than the rain tonight." He looked at her then, really looked. "You saved yourself. I just gave you a roof." She stepped closer, eyes glistening in the firelight. "You could have turned me away that first night. Maybe I should have, but you didn't." He exhaled slowly, the sound almost a sigh. "You remind me of someone I used to know." She wanted more from this life than it ever gave her. "What happened to her?" "The world happened," he said. "Same as it does to everyone." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was charged, fragile. Clara sat by the fire, the blanket slipping from her shoulders. "Eli," she whispered, "I don't have anywhere else to go. I can work harder, take care of the animals, whatever you ask. Just don't send me away." He stared at the flames. "You can stay until spring. After that, I head north to sell cattle." Relief flooded her face. "Thank you. I'm not doing this for you," he said, but the words rang hollow. He was doing it because something in her eyes, defiant, wounded, alive, had reached the part of him that still remembered what it meant to care. Weeks passed. The frost began to thin, and patches of grass poked through the snow. Clara learned the rhythm of ranch life, the sounds that marked each hour, the creak of the barn door, the soft clink of spurs, the whistle of wind through dry sage. Sometimes, she caught Eli watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. He never smiled, but there was warmth there, quiet and dangerous. One morning, as she fetched water from the creek, she heard hoofbeats, fast, unfamiliar. She dropped the bucket and turned. 2 riders appeared on the ridge, silhouetted against the pale sun. They reined in, scanning the land below. Clara's stomach tightened. She knew that stance, that searching gaze. Her past, it seemed, had found its way north. She ran back toward the house. Eli met her halfway, rifle in hand. "What is it?" "Riders," she gasped. "Looking for someone." "Looking for me." His jaw clenched. "Who?" "The man I ran from had friends. They think I belong to him." He glanced toward the ridge, then back at her. "You stay inside. I can fight." "No," he snapped. "You've done enough fighting." The riders reached the yard minutes later, mud spattering their boots. The taller one dismounted first, his grin sharp as broken glass. "Morning," he drawled. "We're looking for a girl. Dark hair, about so high." Came through Dry Fork about a month back. Stole something that wasn't hers. Eli leaned on his rifle. Ain't seen anyone fits that. The man's eyes narrowed. Mind if we take a look around? I do mind. The silence that followed was long and dangerous. The rain from the night before had left the ground soft. The horses shifted uneasily, their breath steaming in the cold air. Clara stood inside the doorway, heart hammering. Finally, the man spat into the dirt. You're making a mistake, friend. Been making those my whole life, Eli said evenly. One more won't kill me. The men left, but not far. Clara watched them ride toward the ridge and stop, silhouettes against the fading light. They'd be back. That night, Eli found her sitting by the fire, eyes red. They won't stop, she said. You know that. I know. You should tell me to go. He sat across from her, hands clasped loosely between his knees. You asked me once why I didn't turn you away. Maybe it's because I was waiting for something to give me a reason to fight again. Her throat tightened. You don't even know what you're fighting for. He met her gaze. Maybe I do. The wind outside rose again, whispering across the plains. The fire snapped, sending sparks dancing into the shadows. Clara looked at the man who had given her a roof, and for the first time in months, she believed she might have found more than shelter. She had found a place where she could stand her ground. She reached across the table, fingers brushing his. Then we fight, she said softly. Together. Eli didn't pull away. And outside, beneath the vast, indifferent sky, the storm gathered once more, not of weather this time, but of men, memory, and the long reckoning that always came in the Wild West.